We have with us today Zayne Thompson, founder of Ocean Bandits. What is that? Well, that'll come a little bit later in our interview today. But we've got a few things we want to talk to you about. Zayne, thanks for joining us today. Principally things like what to be aware of when buying NFTs and how do you stop yourself being scammed, and how do you know it's a fair price, and actually even just is there any real world value, or are there any other applications for NFTs? So there's been a lot of talk, but we'd like to see if we can clear away some of that talk and get some nitty gritty underneath. And we know you've actually been in this space, in the crypto space and NFTs, actually for quite a few years. Maybe just you could just tell us when did you get in? You're kind of an early adopter, weren't you?
I would like to say I'm an early adopter, although one of my biggest faux pas, if you will, was not buying Bitcoin when I first noticed it. So I'll rewind all the way back to 2014, where there was a fresh-faced Zayne just joining a Fortune 500 company, and I actually was quite interested in Bitcoin at the time. I'd heard of it, heard of the applications. It had sort of gone through its first little mini bull run. And it had kind of gone from about maybe $20 a coin to about $1,000 a coin, and then it kind of gone back down to about 500 or so. So it was sort of getting some headlines, and everybody was quite interested in what this application was. And so I decided to sort of do a lot of deep diving into this blockchain technology on behalf of American Express. And I ended up actually delivering a discourse to American Express Australia and New Zealand. And funnily enough, I actually found the original presentation the other day. I kind of blew the dust off, looked through the hard drives, and sure enough, there it was. And I remember seeing the price of Bitcoin sitting at $570 on my slide. And I sort of said, it's gone up, it's gone down, but it's sitting at $570. Will it go up? Will it go down? Now, unfortunately, I didn't decide to kind of go in very heavy on Bitcoin at that stage. Otherwise, I might be coming to you from some form of mansion now. But it's really a case of maybe a missed opportunity. So when I started to see the early signs of a bull market returning in sort of late 2016, early 2017, I decided to pay a bit more attention. So essentially, I sort of made sure I wasn't going to kind of miss this particular wave, and got into it pretty heavily. So I got into a couple of different aspects of the kind of 2017 bull run, if you will. One of them was NFT, or not NFTs, but staking. So staking contracts and things like that, which I know you've spoken about on your channel before. Another one I got into was actually mining. So I was sort of that guy with a massive mining rig that all GPU buyers and gamers hated, buying all the graphics cards. My wife absolutely loved it because I had an industrial size extractor fan sitting in my office to extract all the heat,
blowing warm air through the house, and
it whirred all night long. So I was very popular. I was very popular for that period of time, and it was very profitable at the time. I seem to remember actually walking through the city at one stage and looking down on my income, and it was sitting at maybe $1,600 a week, which is really respectable income for a kind of a side hustle, if you will. And interestingly enough, I sort of had some really good times there. I got out some crypto, and then lo and behold, very early 2018, Bitcoin kind of took a big dive down from about $19,000 or so and changed all the way down to maybe sort of 5,000 or 6,000. And that's kind of where it hovered for a good couple of years. It sort of had a few bits and, peaks and troughs between the few years. But obviously 2020 and 2021 have seen the most movement in Bitcoin. Everybody that was marveling at a $19,000 Bitcoin is now wishing that they could buy Bitcoin for $19,000, which is ironically the kind of wave I feel like we see ourselves at now in the NFT space. So, I kind of was an early NFT adopter. Well, I like to think so as well. I bought my first NFT in April 2021, which I still think is pretty early as far as the wave was concerned. It was a particular project which is still around, but it didn't do very well. It was kind of just a good learning experience to kind of go through the process of buying something and what inherent value an NFT might actually have. I kind of bought and traded a couple more over the years, and then that led me to sort of actually decide to found my own project because I'd sort of learnt enough to sort of be dangerous, so to speak, and kind of knew the pitfalls that some of the NFT projects had seen. And so I decided, yeah, look, let me give it a crack and assemble a ragtag team to start a project of my own. And I guess that kind of brings us to why we're having the conversation today.
Yeah. And look, and it's good to have somebody, I guess, that's been involved in the various aspects of, I guess, what underlies NFTs. If you don't have a blockchain, if you don't have crypto, then there's no NFTs. And that's particularly why we want to chat to Zayne, and also for your employee, of kind of being a person that's been on the forefront of helping there. So a bit of insider knowledge, as it were. So that probably leads us to that first question, actually, what to be aware of when buying NFTs. Look, we've read things like they're very speculative. Some say, chatting to Daniel Carney from Good Life Advice, he said, if crypto is no more than 3% of your entire portfolio, then NFT is sort of an even more high risk thing. So this is sort of the messages we're getting, but I guess more from a technical perspective, as it were, and somebody who has done some of this buying and trading and so forth. Yeah, what sort of things to be aware of there, which then will lead into our second one. How do you stop yourself from being scammed?
Yeah, and both really good questions, right? So what to be aware of when buying NFTs? I suppose you have to be quite understanding and realistic about what you're investing in. Remember, you're effectively investing in an early startup. Plenty of people have said this in the past, and so I don't really need to repeat it, but it's sort of like, don't invest money that you can't afford to lose. If you're going to make the choice between an NFT and groceries, you're playing the wrong game. Don't do that. And like you say, I kind of maybe err a bit more on the side of maybe 90-10 in my sort of real world portfolio and crypto portfolios, but NFTs make up a very small part of that. And I don't feel like they should make up too much of a percentage. They are inherently less liquid than cryptocurrency, which we could probably touch on a little bit later as well. But effectively,
I'll just put a disclaimer here, by the way. We're not giving financial advice. Talk to your financial advisor about that. So just to make that clear.
All the way across the bottom, not financial advice. Just telling you my personal opinion, and that is what I do. And I think, as long as you kind of realistically know that you're investing in an early startup, go in with a healthy expectation, you'll probably be fine. So understand it for what it is. I think I kind of compare it quite often to normal venture capital. Venture capitalists tend to invest in startups, and they understand that there's an inherent risk in investing in these startups, but they usually average out on top. They'll sort of go, there's a couple of ones that we invested in that didn't go so well, but there's this one that did really well, and so we're sort of up overall generally on our investment portfolio.
So it could be the next Apple or the next PayPal, but it also could be what's that one where they had like the fake testing? Theranos.
There's been so many. There's been so many.
So you got to be aware of
next Enron. Next Enron or something like that.
Right. My dad would always say, "Look, son, whatever. If you're going to loan money to a person, be prepared to lose it." That was loaning to a friend. In essence, this is kind of the same principle. So that makes sense. So it's not stay away from the space, but just have your realistic expectations rather than stars in your eyes.
Absolutely. And I think the unfortunate thing is that there's a lot of YouTube channels and things like that probably give people some false expectations of the fact that it's just always going to go up and it's always going to sell for more, and it's just unrealistic expectations. So I'd say the first thing, take a dose of reality, understand what you're investing in, and then you'll be able to sort of make more comfortable decisions. I think your example was perfect. Not every company is going to be the next Airbnb or Uber in venture capital, just like the next NFT project. Not all of them are going to be the next Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is a massive one at the moment. So just do your due diligence and make the decision that kind of feels right based on that. I think another pretty important aspect is to understand what you're buying the NFT for. Are you a long-term holder? Do you truly believe in this project, that you're going to buy this for the long term and you're going to ride out all the ups and downs for 3, 6, 9, 12 months? That's a very long time in NFT space, so that's why I use short increments. Or essentially, are you going to be someone that's going to be buying it and selling it within a few days or a week or something like that? It's two very different profiles. In my experience, NFT traders tend to only showcase their successful trades, and they don't tend to talk about their failed trades. And so when things downturn, I tend to find that the real value projects shine through all of the chaff, if you will, and then their prices are reflected when things start to run up again. So I'll give you a good example. Right now, like at this very point in time in recording, which was the 10th of March, 2022, there is quite a harsh downturn on a lot of the major, what we call blue chip projects. The Cool Cats, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, CryptoPunks, etc. Now, when that happens, it tends to drag down all of the other projects with it, because those are sort of the ones that move the market. So what trained investors would probably be doing is looking for those projects that they believe have long-term, deliverability. There's teams behind them that are actually delivering on a particular product, and they would use this downturn as an opportunity to buy into those what we call blue chip NFT projects. So some people might look at picking up, if they feel like, a Bored Ape at this stage, down from, I think, a peak of 120 ETH, which is a lot, to about 70 or so ETH at this stage, at the time of recording. So, I would say just sort of be realistic about when there's market downturns. Usually, that's when the good projects kind of shine through.
That's interesting, because it sort of mirrors a bit, say maybe some of the advice around the share market is that when it takes a bit of a dip, that's often the time to look at your portfolio and say, I'll buy a bit more of this, a bit more of this, etc. Because I look at the long-term value of this company, and I believe actually I've got a little bit of a bargain at the moment. So it's sort of similar thinking, and obviously, like you said, it pays to be informed. Okay, so that's really useful on this. So on this first question, what to be aware of, and before we move to the scam question, any other observations that you have there, Zayne?
I think understanding NFTs is an interesting thing, because I would liken NFTs to I'll use another crowdfunding platform as an example, perhaps. I'm sure you're familiar with Kickstarter. For those of the audience that might not be familiar with what Kickstarter does, is you put a project up, you say, I really want to do this. I want to make a new board game, and you take investors' money with the expectation that you will deliver that board game and give them some extra perks and things like that. Kickstarter, you tend to get a physical product. There's actually Kickstarters for movies and films and all sorts of things, but you tend to get a physical product. I think the important distinction between NFTs and getting physical products like from Kickstarter is that NFTs tend to be a picture or a video or some form of JPEG, for lack of better words, which is actually attached to a brand that's being built, and the value is really in the brand that's being built. People don't pay, 73 Ethereum, which is, a lot at this stage. People don't pay 73 Ethereum for a Bored Ape Yacht Club to have a picture of an ape. That's not what they purchase it for, because they can go on the internet and get a picture of an ape if they really want to. They purchase it to be part of the brand and all of the brand promises that kind of come with that NFT project. So I think it's important to make that distinction.
While we're here, actually, so I just looked it up here. So the Ethereum price today is about 4,000 New Zealand dollars for one Ethereum. So 73 times 4,000. That's a bargain price for a Bored Ape NFT. And I guess if you'd seen that clip on YouTube recently, it was when Paris Hilton and Jimmy Fallon compared their Bored Ape NFTs. And their values were 1 point something million US dollars that they had paid for them. So it just sort of gives us a bit of perspective in terms of why Zayne says 73 ETH is kind of bargain basement for a Bored Ape
I'm not
at the moment.
endorsing Bored Ape by any means.
Mm.
I think there's probably better projects for less money at this stage. I would say, unless you really want to go hang out with Paris Hilton and Jimmy Fallon in New York, if that appeals to you.
Yeah, although
But I mean,
maybe it's
if Jimmy
who?
Fallon's watching,
Yes.
I would be happy to come and have a chat to you, Jimmy. But I can't get a Bored Ape at this stage, so I apologize.
Yeah. Jimmy watches our channel all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, Jimmy, long
Yeah.
time subscriber. Anyways, so I mean, I think your next question was around scams, right? Because I think,
Yeah. Well, and
it's
even there's a bit of debate because, for example, with the Bored Ape Yacht Club, somebody then did a flipped Bored Ape, re-released those, and said, "Oh, look, this is just a variation on it." And there's those arguments saying, "Well, that's not a scam. This is the whole point of artistry and individuality." And so there's different views, but there obviously are those out there where people say, "Oh, well, here's our project. Thanks for your money," and then it's
yep,
gone. So you read about
yeah,
that, right? Hence
yeah,
the
and I think
question: how do we protect ourselves in this?
unfortunately, with new technology, I'll liken this to cell phones. So I'm sure that you know what a cell phone is, and when the innovation came in and whatever it was, the first people to actually have cell phones and use them actively were drug smugglers. So drug smugglers and drug dealers, because it was an instant form of communication. So inherently, with a new technology, always comes, unfortunately, the bad actors. And I would never ever blame the technology. I would blame the human state more than I'd blame the technology on this one. So I actually kind of took this question a little bit differently. And I sort of thought to myself, there's probably two distinct ways you can be scammed in NFTs. The first one is very, very obvious, and it's pretty straightforward phishing. So when an NFT project mints or goes to mint, there's often some bad actors that will try and potentially take over the website, or send people direct messages with fake links and everything like that. And because of the way blockchain technology works, all transactions are pretty much final. So there's no real way to sort of reverse a transaction from the blockchain. So if you mint an NFT from what you think is your favorite project that you've been following for a while, and it happens to be the project's founder that's actually direct messaged you and said, "Hey, Zayne, you know what? You can get a 50% discount if you mint, the project right now." Well, pretty sure that's almost 99% of the time a scam. And unfortunately, that's a lot of bad actors do that as well. So I thought I'd kind of distinctly separate out. That's a very real way that people get scammed. So advice: only go to official links. Often projects, I think projects kind of run pretty much on Twitter and Discord these days, although there's a lot of different ways that you can verify some project links. But projects tend to run there. And so go and check their most recent announcements, check their page for official links. Pretty much every project has a page for official links, and it'll have their official website, their official minting links, their official OpenSea link, even like that. So OpenSea is a marketplace for NFTs, for those of you who don't know. So make sure to check those official links. Unfortunately, there's no real way to sort of distinctly say don't get caught in phishing scams. But just sort of, if it doesn't feel right, if it feels too good to be true, it probably is. And so just sort of be careful on that particular front. So don't get scammed on that. And there's lots of people that'll warn you about that too. But the bigger picture, of course, is of course these projects that tend to make big promises, build lots of hype, take millions of dollars from investors, and then just disappear, which is absolutely terrible. And I think it's easier to do in the NFT space than it is in the venture capital space for startups, as an example, because you're dealing directly with consumers as opposed to dealing with an intermediary, which would sort of do an IPO or something like that. You'd have to be a registered investor to do an IPO and have signed off on due diligence, etc. So it's a pretty important distinction there. I would say, honestly, the clearest advice I can give is use your radar. Just look at a project and ask yourself a couple of questions. These people are asking for my money. Is the team well documented or doxed in the NFT world is what the vocabulary is. It's so important. I tend to vote for people over promises. I tend to sort of look at the people behind the project and go, you know what, they look trustworthy, they work for other companies, maybe they've delivered some products in the past. If the people behind the product are credible and active in the community and everything like that, it's a really good sign. I would say also looking at the roadmap, do the roadmap promises sound realistic? Are these guys no names and promising to make, the next smash hit AAA game? Well, take it with a pinch of salt. It's sort of a case of, if they are a community of game developers already and they happen to work for, other gaming houses, and then they're putting an NFT project together to make a game, absolutely. Yeah, that's sort of a good idea. But sort of just take it with a pinch of salt, and rather than looking at the promises, look at the team behind those promises and, put a reality filter over it and just go, do I believe this team can actually deliver this particular promise? And that'll be an interesting one. Yeah.
So it's sort of a bit of it's beware of FOMO, isn't it? Because that again, quote dear old dad he'd say, it's never the last good deal, son. So this fear of rushing in and like, oh, I've got to get in or I'll miss out, or I'm going to make so much money. So greed or fear driving decisions. Behavioral economics is never going to get a good outcome. So that's sort of like, back the truck up a bit, right? Step away, look at the big. That sounds very reasonable advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also depends on, again, potentially what kind of investor you are. Admittedly, myself, I tend to have less time to research projects and go into their Twitter spaces and listen to their founders, listen to their AMAs or Ask Me Anythings, and generally do research. I tend to think if I'm committing $100 to $300 to something, that's probably okay. I can kind of go generally, 5 or 10 minutes of reading on the project. Do I like what they're trying to achieve? Sure, I'll dedicate $100 or $200 to this and see how it goes. But there's a lot of products, these days, projects that are asking for, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 plus. If you're in that situation, if you can drop $3,000 and it doesn't matter to you, fantastic. But it matters to me. And so for those projects, I'd probably be doing a lot more due diligence, listening to them a bit more, understanding how they're going to deliver on their promises. And I think, that we've probably talked a lot about what to look for in a good project. Let me tell you what to look for in a bad project, or potentially a bad project. I don't want to say bad projects, because I tend to believe in the best of intentions of people. People tell me I'm often wrong, but I tend to believe in the best intentions. I think projects that have popped up overnight and have shared a post on Twitter and have received 5,000 plus retweets and likes, and then suddenly pop up a Discord and they suddenly have 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people in a Discord, with no real team behind it or any sort of real substance behind it. That's kind of getting a bit fishy for me, because they've obviously bought a whole bunch of marketing. They understand how to market. They've bought a whole bunch of marketing. I would be very, very wary of those projects. I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy marketing in the space, because honestly, to kind of cut through the noise when you're starting a project is really difficult, and you do have to pay for marketing. There's sort of no right way around that. But it's sort of layering the radar that you sort of have with how quickly have these guys popped up? Like, do I know who they are really? How old is the founder's Twitter? Did they pop up this Twitter 3 days ago and then the team Twitter a day ago? That's maybe a red flag. Maybe they're wanting to just protect their identity. But I tend to think that if you have a genuine product, you don't really need to protect your identity for the most part. Hence chatting to you on hence chatting to you over video, which is there. But I'll use a good example, and I wrote this down to sort of not kind of misword it. So let me just read it to you. So it was a cautionary tale which this founder put up on Twitter. A project popped up. It was a few months ago. to showcase how easy it was to buy your way to the top. I can't actually remember the project's name. I will try and find it perhaps and give it to you later. But they had all the classic hallmarks of a great project. They had influencers, they had massive Twitter audiences, they had a massive Discord, but most of it was fake. And it came out, and they came out and used this basically as a warning to investors in the space. The marketing and hype was manufactured to perfection, but real value lies in the delivery of what the project is actually saying. So they came out and said, this was a complete social experiment. We've spent a whole bunch of money. We've bought a whole bunch of clout, for lack of better words. And if we had launched a product tomorrow, there's more likely a lot of investors that could have been fleeced. They could have we could have put out a mint for some picture and some promises, and then left because we're not documented. Nobody knows who we are and everything like that. And they used it as a cautionary tale, which I think was a very important thought experiment to kind of go through, and it got some eyebrows raised from myself and my team and a few more sort of intellectual people in the space.
Okay, so yeah, all right. It was like an object lesson of how easy it is to be caught up, and hence this whole
Correct.
conversation. How do you protect yourself? How do you limit your exposure? Okay, well that's very useful points, and we'll have time markers in the video. Of course, you can jump to the points that really interest you. So what we're going to start ask Zayne in the next section is, how do you know what's a fair price to pay for an NFT?
Sure. So the real answer is you don't. You determine determine what the price should be. I think there's general price guides of what people are paying, but honestly, remember all the way back to the first thing I said, this is an early startup, and they can really ask for as much or as little money as they want from you. I'll give you a great example. If somebody is, it's a group of 8 or 10 game developers, and they're trying to develop the next FIFA, some really well AAA platinum game, and it's going to take a huge amount of capital, and you are investing in their company, I would say, yes, you could probably look to pay a fair bit of money for that. But then by contrast, if a project pops up and says, hey, we really want to build a school in a third world country, put a bit of rationale behind that and go, a school in a third world country might cost $100,000, and they might be trying to raise $5 million. And then you suddenly go, okay, so why would you need $5 million? Are you going to build 50 schools, or are you going to build 25 schools or something like that? You sort of have to put that rationale filter over it. And so the real answer is you don't know. You sort of have to determine what you're comfortable with as far as risk is concerned. But look at it and go, is this worth $100, $200, $300, $500, $1,000 gamble? And go from there. I don't have a price guide, unfortunately. I would love to. But personally, I feel like projects that are sort of in the sort of 0.1 to 0.3 ETH range are usually pretty reasonable. That's usually raising anywhere between $2 and maybe $5 million, just depending on what their goals are and their future roadmaps are, etc. I'd say that's probably in the reasonable zone. There's a lot of people that raise a lot less, and there's a lot of people that have obviously raise a lot more that I've been involved in that have gone really well. But it's just it's a game up to your risk tolerance.
And that's sort of we would often suggest have a chat to a financial advisor, because they will draw up a risk profile. And quite often we find that with a couple, sometimes that say the husband will have a different risk profile to the wife, and the value of that is it helps you see, well, where's the compromise, where's sort of the middle ground, and then making recommendations based on your tolerance of risk. So just and obviously the more, I guess, independent advice is going to help equip you to make some good decisions about what's good for your own investments. Interestingly, though, Zayne, I noticed that you commented you've commented quite a bit so far about projects, and then you've mentioned some things like building a school in Africa, which actually nicely leads us to our next question. That wasn't planned, folks, but the next question was: is there a real world value? Pardon me, for NFTs? In my mind anyway, it's artificial rabbits, fluff world, and brains and bored apes and things like this. But is there any real world value for NFTs?
Well, I think a lot of people would say yes, because they own these projects, right? So they've decided to pay $1 million for a Bored Ape Yacht Club. So I think a lot of people would say yes, there's a lot of real world value. I might use this potentially as an opportunity to talk about my project, which is Ocean Bandits, and then I'll sort of go into maybe a couple of examples of where I see further real world value being created.
Let's just get that on screen actually while you do that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Now, so here we go. We've got Ocean Bandits here on this. So let's just drag this up a bit.
Yeah,
so we can
absolutely.
See that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, like we said in the beginning, my name is Zayne. I'm the founder of Ocean Bandits. So we're a team of 8. At Ocean Bandits on Twitter, or oceanbanditsnft.com. If you have a look there, I'm sure you could probably link it in the description or something like that. And our main objective was to incentivize and gamify environmental change. We started with ocean plastic because we sort of just picked that as a really good cause to kind of get behind. Hence Ocean Bandits. And what we aim to be...
Take that off the screen now, Zayne, just so you know that we're seeing your face again.
Yeah. No, that's all good. So, I mean, essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to gamify staking as an NFT project. So we talked about staking before. For maybe your audience that doesn't know what NFT staking is, I might just do a quick
that'd be
what
handy.
Is NFT staking? Yep. So staking I would describe as you purchase something, an NFT, and then you give it to somebody else, i.e. ourselves, and we lock it up in a vault, which means you can't actually actively trade that or sell it on OpenSea or anything like that. And in exchange, we give you tokens, so crypto tokens, which will be used for a host of real world applications, which I can get into in a second as well. But that is what NFT staking is. So for those of you, I can probably go into a lot more of a detailed description, but at this stage, probably the headline's okay. So we're an NFT staking project. We aim to be the first EnviroTech launchpad, so powering further businesses to be able to sort of launch their products off the back of our community. So if you think about it, what really hit us was that in the mind of an 18-year-old kid in a third world country, they might have the cure for global warming, or they might have some sort of robot that populates ocean coral or something like that, which actually exists, by the way. It's quite a cool project, and for us, it's quite sort of disheartening to think that potentially there might be these people that have these ideas, but they don't really know where to go. And so we thought to ourselves, what if we could sort of raise some money and become a launch pad for products like that? So whether they be online products or other NFT projects or real world products, technology-based products, if they create environmental change, we want to be involved and we would like to fund those products. And so that's kind of the EnviroTech launchpad side of things. And then alongside that as well, we aim to be have a massive charitable wallet set up, which will be voted on by the holders. So a large portion of the proceeds are going to be going straight to this charity wallet. That's going to be voted on by the holders. We'll sort of present some presentations and go, we think that these top 3 charities deserve some love and some donations. What do you guys think? They've actually arranged to give something back to us as holders as well, whether that be an exclusive NFT saying that congratulations, you donated to so-and-so charity or something like that. It sort of brought it back to we love NFTs and we love that kind of badge of honor of being able to support a cause. And so why not move that process into the NFT ecosystem? And I think it goes into interestingly why I decided to found this this project. It goes back to a particular entrepreneur that I met a number of years ago by the name of Lisa King, and she's Kiwi as well, and she founded a company called Eat My Lunch. And what Eat My Lunch did was very interesting at the time. They created two-sided value in the corporate lunch delivery niche. It was a very small niche. But essentially what they did is they got a whole bunch of schools to register, some low decile schools to register and say, hey, look, if there's kids that aren't able to afford lunch, have lower socioeconomic status, a lot of the time they did some research. A lot of the time there was even parents that were embarrassed to send their kids to school because they couldn't afford lunch. And that's, education is just a massive part of society as a whole, and no child should miss out on education just for the lack of having some lunch, right?
True.
And so what they did was they created this two-sided value mechanism where somebody in a corporate office like myself could order a lunch. They would deliver that lunch to the corporate office. And with the proceeds of that lunch that I purchased for whatever it was, $15, they would be able to make a secondary lunch in their kitchen for the kids and distribute it to the schools. So they kind of had this, delivery system to the corporate offices and the delivery system to the schools. It wasn't the same lunch, by the way. I often thought we often got really fancy lunches, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, I wouldn't want to be a kid at 10 years old getting this lunch. But anyways, and I created this two-sided value mechanism, and I thought to myself, wow, okay, so there's value for me as somebody, I get some lunch out of it. There's value for the person that gets the lunch on the back end as well, and there's enough left in between for Eat My Lunch to run a team and to kind of even expand their operations, get new vehicles and expand their kitchen operations and everything like that. And it really hit me, and I sort of went, hang on, what if we did that just times a bit more of an NFT based scale? Because I was already in NFTs at the time, and I'd kind of been ruminating on this idea. And so I think it's sort of hit me like a ton of bricks, and I thought to myself, you know what, I would be angry at myself if I didn't try. To kind of create this two-sided value. So the two-sided value that we're trying to create with our Ocean Bandits collection is essentially the same. We want to be able to reward the holders with NFTs and real-world goods and everything like that for backing our ecosystem, as well as supporting environmental causes with our Launchpad and charities with our charity wallets as well. So, two-sided value, and then there's that little sliver in between that we get to run a team and feel good about what we're doing for the space, which is quite a cool proposition.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say just a little plug. You pulled up the website before. We just actually launched our stage 1 mint yesterday. So for anybody that's having a look, jump on. It's a beautiful work of art called the Sea Stone, and it actually gives you early access to kind of everything that we're doing.
And put that on screen. Here we go.
You're welcome.
Sea Stone Mint Pass. Is this mint? Select your Sea Stone by clicking on the colors you wish, and then mint now.
Yeah. So nine different colors. Beautiful 3D art done by our developer.
Okay.
And essentially, this acts as a mint pass. So we have a bunch of characters that have a bit of story attached to them, which will be launching in a couple of weeks. And basically, this Sea Stone is an additional NFT that gets you a free Ocean Bandit. So hopefully that makes sense. So hopefully, if you want to go have a check it out, feel free to jump in the chats and things like that and say hi to us.
Yeah, look, someone was just ringing me now to ask about it.
Yeah. Immediately, I love it.
Yeah.
The immediate one.
All right, and so I guess this is an example and point of NFTs doing some real world stuff that's useful, as in more than just making somebody rich, but trying to do something for people, for communities, for the environment.
Absolutely, and I think there's tons of other applications for NFTs, and I think what's quite interesting. I'll actually use a good example, and it's actually sitting on my wrist right now. I'm among other things, being an NFT collector, I'm also a watch collector.
Yeah.
So I have this watch. It's called the Tag Heuer NRDC Aqua Racer.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a little story about it because I love the story. In 2010, Leonardo DiCaprio, who's a well-known environmental activist as well, decided to partner with Tag Heuer and the NRDC, or the National Resource Defence Council. And they went to essentially support the NRDC. They decided to launch a watch and send all of the profits over to the NRDC to kind of help fund their efforts and things like that.
Right.
So I didn't buy this in 2010. I bought it a little bit later. But the story behind it is that I got a limited edition watch. It was one of 1,000 pieces. It represented supporting a good cause, and I got something out of it as well. And I'm sure Tag Heuer made a little margin in between too. And so this was kind of that example of that two-sided value that I just couldn't pass up. And it leads me into a really interesting conversation I had with a colleague on the B2B applications of NFTs. And we were thinking specifically about watches. Now, NFTs, for most people that are probably watching, if you know what an NFT is, you know that it's verifiable in the blockchain and there's no way to fake it. So once you have that NFT and it says, this is Zayne's NFT and it's in Zayne's wallet, there's no way to sort of fake that you have that same NFT.
Right. It's like, this is a genuine Tag Heuer, for example. Yeah.
Correct. And so, when you think about products and products in particular that may have fakes and counterfeits and things like that often in the marketplace, I'll use Rolex as a great example. So Rolex obviously protects their brand pretty fiercely, whereas there's a lot of Rolex clones that come out. Now, what if, and you heard it here first, if Rolex does this after seeing the video, I'm going to know about it. But what if every new Rolex that was sold also with a certificate of authenticity that was an NFT that was transferred over to the holder's wallet? So they said, look, to buy this Rolex, you have to download whatever, the Rolex app. And the Rolex app has all of the Rolex holders' NFTs registered in it. And you, Zayne, are the proud holder of Rolex 1,146 or something like that. When I went to sell that Rolex, I would have to transfer the ownership or the certificate of authenticity to the next participant. If I didn't, it would actually lose value. If people sort of got used to the fact that, no, Rolexes need to come with certificates of authenticity, you can't sell a Rolex without this NFT. Suddenly, there's a real world application for NFTs. It's non-fungible. You can't fake it. It's transferable. Because obviously there's a large secondary market for Rolex sales, and it's inherently very difficult to nigh impossible to fake. And so that you're getting Rolex 1,146, and that Zayne, in fact, is the rightful holder. Because what if you are standing on the side of the street and somebody's trying to sell you a Rolex and actually they don't actually own it? What if they've stolen it or something of that?
You're in Hong Kong.
Correct. Yeah, you're in. You've got the old jacket open.
Some other place.
So I mean, that was to me was a great application of real world NFTs. You think about all the luxury brands, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and things like that. They have their stuff faked all the time, and they could solve it probably pretty easily by educating their consumers on NFTs and why they need to download the Gucci app or something like that. So who knows? Maybe that's my next business. But what I was going to say as well is, another great application in particular of NFTs, and I think NFTs have really found their niche with gaming. So gaming NFTs are huge at the moment. The biggest game in the world at this stage in NFTs is called Axie Infinity, and what it has its own little ecosystem, and what it is effectively play to earn. So that means that when you play the game, it generates revenue for the holders. So suddenly, instead of you paying $100 for a game and then going to play it, and then congratulations, you finished the game, suddenly you can get into a game for a couple $100. I can't remember actually how much Axie Infinities cost these days, but you can get into a game for a couple $100 and you can actually be paid to play. And so actually these games have taken off in a huge way in third world countries, in countries like the Philippines, where it may be a lot cheaper to live than perhaps where we are. And so at the end of the day, these play to earn games sort of distribute the rewards of the ecosystem amongst their holders. Again, there's a small sliver for the development company that runs the game to sort of, obviously first raise money to build the game and then to actually run the game ongoing. But essentially you're buying an asset that can be used. And the interesting thing is that even if the game shuts down tomorrow and the founders leave, all of the source code of the game is still around and people could probably kind of clone it. And then you still actually have that NFT as ownership in your wallet. So if somebody said, you know what, guys, Axie Infinity shut down today, but we're developing this game that you can take all of your axes, which are the characters, and you can put them into our game, and we've got similar mechanics or something like that, and we've developed it so that it can kind of integrate really well. Well, suddenly you're not left with assets that you can't do anything with. People spend thousands and thousands of dollars in standard games to buy skins and items and everything like that to effectively show off to their friends or get different abilities in the game or everything like that. But if your account gets banned or they shut down the game tomorrow or something like that, you're left with nothing. You're left with nothing to show for that $1,000. Whereas when you buy it as an NFT, that inherent data is still there. Yes, it's crafted to that game, but some other developer could come along and say, hey, there's a base of 10,000, 100,000, 1 million players. Let's develop a game specifically for them and plug it in. So I see a lot of real world value in the gaming NFT niche, and I'm paying quite close attention to that niche at the moment as well.
Yeah, right. And I know sort of when we chatted to Nicole Upchurch earlier in the year from SensNet, she'd mentioned, buying concert tickets that come with an NFT, and then if you resell them, you resell the NFT, and that, again, is an immutable transaction, the blockchain. So anything, I guess, it's involving verification straight away, that's a real practical benefit. From what you're talking about, maybe we will see in time that when you purchase land, it's also authenticated with an NFT. If we see Lynn's come out with that, then we'll know they were watching.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, it's already being done. There's obviously some pretty complex security laws and things like that I won't get into with those purchases, but there's already shared house ownership companies right now. That are sort of operating even in New Zealand, I believe. I'm trying to think of the name of one now, but they'll sort of go, oh, we want to buy this house. It's 1.5 million. It's in the suburb, and it'll return X amount of rental income. How do you turn that into a fractionalized NFT? So instead of 100 people buying into it, 10,000 people can buy into it. So suddenly you can own a piece of a beautiful home in a really affluent suburb for $100, and you receive the incremental income that kind of comes with that. Again, we're not security lawyers here. So there's a lot of security law that goes into that, but the application of the technology can definitely be applied. So it's quite exciting. It's quite exciting to be at the forefront of a technology like this. And going all the way back to the beginning, I'm not missing out again. So I'm not missing my Bitcoin at $570 moment now. So I'll be paying very close attention to sort of the NFT space and the blockchain space as it develops over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and hopefully if this is something you're interested in, then like this interview and the other ones we've been posting on YouTube and in this space help you sort of get in as well at this point in time. It really brings us to our last question. Thank you, Zayne, for all of your comments and observations and insights. Are there any other applications for NFTs?
It's funny. It sort of used to be the sort of dialogue that NFTs were looking for an application, but now it's really the flip in that you can pretty much think of an application for NFTs in almost every sector. I won't go into sort of any more of my ideas just in case I need to patent them or something like that.
Hello patent.
Yeah. That's it. But the interesting thing is that because verifiable digital asset ownership is something that potentially for my generation and maybe your generation might not be as familiar, but let me tell you, the generation that's 10 to 18 knows everything about NFTs. A friend of mine genuinely said to me, Zayne, tell me about crypto. What do I need to know? And I pointed at his son who's 15 and I said, don't ask me, ask him, because he knows more about NFTs and crypto than I ever will, because he's involved in the space. He understands gaming, everything. I don't have time to play games too much anymore. But I'm interested in the gaming space and NFTs. And so the interesting thing is that there's an entire generation coming up now who want this. They don't have a lot of money just yet, but there's mechanisms for them to make money now with the play to earn games and things like that. And so more and more, they're going to become more educated investors. Unfortunately, the sort of the boomers and the people that have all of the money are still worrying about whether Bitcoin's a good investment. Well,
yeah,
I mean, Bitcoin is, I would say, a good investment if you look at historical performance. And so, it's outperformed every S&P 500 and every other asset class basically in its pathways. So even if you ride, the lows and highs. So, I would say
that's an
generally,
interesting analogy because, here, and I'm showing my age, but when I was at high school, the computers were just for Form 6, Form 7, and yet now it's bring your own device. You need a Chromebook, you need a tablet, something that's a Google Classroom. That's modern day learning in this country, isn't it? So that's how much things have moved. They've become an indispensable part of learning and work, and rather than just something you only kept for the senior students. So same thing with the NFTs, isn't it? That's really where we're at, on the cusp of that.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And I think it's going to be so interesting to see what the next kind of 5 to 10 years. It's encouraged a lot of bad actors, and those bad actors have unfortunately stolen headlines. But the technology underlying it's sort of the rhetoric of crypto in 2017. There was a ton of what they call ICOs, or initial coin offerings, of people offering big promises, taking a lot of money, running away because the technology enabled it. But now ICOs and IEOs and whatever else you want to call them are used as a genuine mechanism to raise funds for a particular blockchain project. And so I think NFTs have unfortunately probably gotten that behind them, and there may still be a little bit more to run in 2022. But once those bad actors are kind of shaken out, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting space to be in.
Yeah. If old McDonald's farm ever had a NFT offering, would it be an IEICO?
Did you prepare that joke?
No, this dad jokes on demand. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, Zayne, we really appreciate all those comments today, and of course, if the Ocean Bandits is something that sounds like something you're interested in, well, we're going to put some links in the video, of course, but on Twitter. On your website, I found it was pretty easy to find the official sites and so forth.
Yeah, sure. I was going to say for the audience, if they want to follow me, I'm at Blockchain Zayne, so Zayne, by the way, just in case. So at Blockchain Zayne, I'm sure you can. I'll send you the link anyways. You can link that too.
Very good.
If you feel like following me
in the blurb. Yeah.
No worries.
Well, it's been great to have that insider knowledge today. Thank you so much, Zayne. And of course, if you've still got questions, you can contact Zayne or find your nearest 15-year-old and ask them.
True story. Yeah, true story. No, but thank you, Gareth, for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been quite fun.
All right, awesome. Zayne Thompson, founder of Ocean Bandits. Thank you very much for your time.